G'day everyone, it's Andrew from AJT Engineering here. Here I've got a 2005 Subaru Liberty or Outback harness, or in other parts of the world, the Legacy. So we've just received this one, and it's got everything that you could think of has been sent. So it's a good one to show you the layout of the harness and what you do need, what you don't need. And yeah, so there's three separate harnesses on here. So I'll start up at the front. So I've laid this out sort of how it is in the car. So you've got the drivers here, so the steering column's about here. That's the middle of the car. That's the engine plug, so the firewall's about here. And engine computers on the passenger side. So this is Australian Loom, so it's a right-hand drive. So yeah, this is the right-hand side, this is the left-hand side, and the fuse box. So one harness we don't really need is the front harness. So this is a harness that sort of goes under the radiator, does all your radiator fans. So that's the temp sensor, radiator fans. It's even got the horn still attached. So this harness is only a small harness, but it's sort of on its own, and it just plugs into the fuse box. So unless you actually want to run the Subaru radiator fans, where you might want to take these plugs off, yeah, you don't need that at all. So I don't need when you're sending the looms, don't need the fuse box. And yeah, this is the alternator. I suppose this is another sub harness, is the one that goes to the alternator and the air conditioning compressor. So that's on the engine, and that's wired directly to the fuse box. So it's actually sort of separate here. It's even got the battery terminals, which you don't need either. Yeah, so the main harness is actually what they call the body harness. So this also plugs in at one end to the fuse box. And the only sort of wires in this loom here that runs up the passenger or left-hand guard is really just a few power wires and the radiator fan trigger wires and the air conditioning compressor trigger wire. So a lot of that can be removed. It's an airbag sensor, that all that can be cut off. The ones for your washer squirters, so that's not needed. So as it comes in the car through this grommet, on the left hand side, these are the engine fuses. So if you're not using the interface box, keep this. So it's got the main relay, and it's got an oxygen sensor relay and the throttle relay, because this model's drive-by-wire. And it's just got all this is not needed, but and then it just comes through this plastic piece and through the firewall. And this one really only has the starter motor wire. So if you're using a Subaru gearbox, it's good to save that, because it's a better plug than the Volkswagen one. And yeah, it also goes to your that's your wiper motor plug. So you can actually chop that off in the car and save getting that out. But yeah, only well, that's the air conditioning pressure sensor. If you want air conditioning, it might be wise to keep that if you reuse the pressure sensor on the Subaru side. So yeah, down here, this is the engine computer, ECU. So it's normally on the passenger footwell, or should I say left-hand side footwell. And it's on the main harness again, so that's basically the middle of the firewall. And then you've got another grommet that goes to the engine bay, and this is basically all your main engine plug. So it's got your 54-pin plug, another little plug, and these are all your gearbox sensors. So yeah, that one's your reverse, that one's your neutral switch, and that one's never used. It's a over temp, which is never actually wired to anything. and that's your rear O2 sensor. So coming onto the right hand side, now this is a bit of a jungle here. So this is your body computer. Now the body computers, that's actually normally mounted on the steering column, and we need to run this at the moment because it's a Canbus model, and so this actually does your Immobiliser. So even though it's got 3 plugs with about 20-30 wires on it, only about 10 wires need to be connected on that one. Basically just power, and this black plug here plugs into the ignition barrel to read the key. So yeah, that one, and just basically power and the comms to the engine computer for the Immobiliser. So over here we've got a few things, not much of it is actually needed, but there's just a few little things, so you can't sort of chop it out. We've got the OBD2 plug, which you want to keep. There's a test mode connector there. Of course, if you use our interface box, which has the test mode switch and that, you don't need to keep this, so you can actually chop all this off. So that'll save a little bit. So we've got the fuse box that's been sent, but again, don't actually need to send the fuse box, so save a bit of postage. We don't need that. All these relays here have got nothing to do with the engine, so that all gets chopped off. And I've got the throttle pedal here. So the throttle pedal, again, just under the steering column, and that's your steering column wires here that go up to the stalks. If you run cruise control, it'll have the it's actually on this one, it'll have the cruise control wiring, so you want to save that if you're running cruise control. And also with cruise control, you want to run the brake switch, which is this 4-pin plug, and there's also a clutch switch there. That's a good idea to run. Yeah, so that's coming down the right hand side. There's another, well, it's still part of the main body harness, but it basically just goes down to your ABS unit and another airbag sensor. So you don't need that, so save a bit of time. You can actually just chop that here and get rid of that. And yeah, just down there's another branch down the middle here which actually goes to the airbag computer. So again, nothing required here, so you could chop it up here. Yeah, so that's the main body harness, so that's really the bulk of it. The last harness that is good to get is what they call a instrumentation harness, and it's basically runs all your behind your dashboard, so it runs all your dash cluster, your aircon, and your stereo as well. So it actually plugs in to the main harness at each side, so left and right. So you can see it's plugged in this sort of square plug, which plugs into the main harness. So you can actually remove that, and that one goes to the right hand side door. This one goes into the fuse box, and really stuff we need from this harness is basically the cluster. But if you're using our new cluster delete, you can actually get rid of that, but it's a good idea to keep it just in case you do want to run the cluster or something happens, and yeah, you want to put the cluster in. So yeah, so if I was you, I would yeah, look at saving that. And yeah, the other end of that goes into the body computer. So in the body computer, there's normally 3 plugs, sometimes there's 4, and so 2 on this one go into the previous harness, the main body harness, and the 3rd plug does your dash harness. So if I unplug that, unplug it on both sides, This is, I can get rid of that. Yeah, everything on this side, yeah, it's not required. So yeah, it's plugs into that one there on the main harness. Yeah, so that's it for the harness. As you can see, it's quite large. It's a lot more than so your previous models. And yeah, next video I'll condense that and chop a few things out and show you the process of doing the loom modifications. So I've done some quick chopping of that previous Legacy Liberty Outback harness, and as you can see, it's a lot more simple than it was before. So I'll just go through it quickly again, which sort of shows you what you do need to leave on. So these are the plugs that went into that fuse box, the main engine bay fuse box, and yeah, a lot of it's not needed, but the only thing we need is the air conditioning trigger, the radiator triggers, and a few power supplies. So this went up the left-hand guard, and if you use the interface box, you can actually probably chop that off, as well as these relays, because all that's taken care of in the interface box, but I've left it on here for now. This went to the dash harness, and I might have on the previous video said that you could chop that one out, but leave that one in. This is actually the one that plugged into the rear harness, so it's got your fuel pump power wire and also the fuel level wire, and that one could go out. That went to the blower motor. And yeah, that's the middle section. I've left the test plugs on, and these went to the original air conditioning unit. They went to like the climate control servo motors. I've just left them on for now. Not much point in taking them off, but they'll have wires too that go to your AC request if you want to run AC in the conversion. So yeah, that's definitely, don't take any of that out. That's the engine computer. And here I've just left the cable that went to the starter motor on, and also the air conditioning pressure switch. So I chopped all the other bits out of that. And this didn't touch any of this, so it's all your engine plugs, so leave that as is. I could have actually taken that plastic bit off to show you, but you can sort of see a few things I've chopped off there. But that went behind the air conditioning unit in the middle of the car on the firewall. So yeah, that's you can sometimes chop that off. That's the diagnostic Subaru Select Monitor diagnostic plug that no one really uses, but that's the clutch switch. So that's good if you're running cruise control. It'll disengage if you put your foot on the clutch. I've got the body computer again. So I've, just for simplicity, I've taken the dash harness out. So it's unplugged there, and that's the plug that goes to your ignition key sense. That went to the ignition barrel, so that's your your accessory ignition start. I could have actually chopped that off as well, but I've just left it on for now. That's your brake switch. That's your cruise control buttons on the steering wheel, and all this went to the stalks, and that can probably be chopped off as well, but just left it on. That's the accelerator pedal, so obviously leave that on. And as I said before, there's nothing here that's used these relay blocks, and that's the flasher unit, the indicators. I could have actually chopped that off as well, but I just left it on. It's not really much point chopping that off. That went to that dash harness, so I've just left that on for now. So it's good to leave it on, because it's got like your malfunction indicator light and your tacho wires wide of this, so it's good to leave it on just so you can identify if you chop that off and not sure, you got no idea where it went. So I like to leave the plugs on if they're used until they're positively identified. This went to all the fuse box, so I've just left it on for now. There's just a ignition wire, and yeah, not much at all that goes to the fuse box, but left them there. That's the overdid 2 port, so you want to leave that on if you're not running the interface box. And yeah, basically you've just got the test mode connector, so I left that on. And yeah, so that's really it. So it's a lot more simpler than the video I showed before, which had all these other wires on. And here's the dash harness. So I haven't touched that, but I've just unplugged it from the main harness. So yeah, nothing here is used. It's just really, yeah, this plug here that went into the body module. Just a couple of wires it'd be needed to remain on that, and also the dash cluster wires. Again, if you just want to run the dash cluster for Immobiliser, only a couple of wires on that are needed. So this loom here basically gets stripped down to nothing, and yeah, it doesn't take long at all. Just mainly it's just getting rid of all that plastic and identifying a handful of wires, and job done. Alrighty, this is when the loom starts to get a bit more interesting and more complicated. So I'll give you a rundown and show you what's happening. So we've got the main body loom here. It's pretty much totally unwrapped apart from the engine plugs, because these will sort of stay as they are, so there's no need to unwrap that. I've got this as the right hand side, so I've laid it out sort of how it is in the car. That's the body computer, the accelerator pedal, the front fuse box, and that was probably the middle of the car, and that went down to the left hand side where the engine computer. And it's got the engine relay block, and this loom down here went to the front engine bay fuse box. So yeah, in this loom here we're going to be installing our interface box. So I'm sort of going to go through a good spot to put it. So good spot to put it is with the engine computer. So I've got a load of wires going from the engine computer which will go straight in the interface box. So a lot of this will be shortened and go straight into the box, into the white plugs. So the green plugs go is what you wire when you actually put it in the car. So pretty much all the wiring on the Subaru side goes to the white plugs, and we've got a diagram here of what that is. And a lot of our different looms, we've put a table up there. So this is a Gen 4 Liberty Outback, and it'll tell you what colours and what pins out of the ECU go to what pins on the interface box to make it a bit easier. So yeah, in this case we'll be cutting these relays out so we can actually reuse them. The same relays are actually used in here, so we can actually recycle them. But the wiring will go to and from the computer, and also some of it goes straight to the engine plug. So we want to try and avoid lengthening wires if possible, so it's good to sort of put the board at a distance where the wiring from the computer will reach the board. So in this case we've got heaps of wire here, so that's not an issue. But we've got wires coming from the engine plug which go into the straight into the relay, so they don't go down here, they just go straight to the relay. So we want to cut them, say at the relay, and have enough length for it to terminate into the box. So for roughly got about 30 centimeters there, or 1 foot, and about another foot there, so I can go down about 2 foot down here. So if I put the box about here, that should work out quite nicely. And the power terminal is actually that one, so yeah, that'll work out good. So you can put the interface box with the ECU then. The other thing, just to be sure, this one's going into a T3, so a van, so it's good to have a lot of length between the engine plugs and the computer here, which can go then under the back seat. So It's just a few things to think about the placement. And yeah, so now it's a case of identifying each wire that goes into these white plugs, chopping it off, and then terminating into the plugs. So I'll show you that in the next episode. Alrighty, so now we've stripped a lot of the wiring loom back. We've actually started to rough it into the interface box. So we've got a copy of the diagram. So it's a 2005 Subaru Liberty or Legacy or Outback, and we've also got a copy of the layout with the pin diagrams for the connectors in the interface box. So basically what we've done is gone through the wiring harness, and say for instance here we've got the 2 radiator fan trigger wires. So it's a red and blue and a black and red. So we've basically found those wires in the loom, and they went to the front engine bay fuse box. So I've cut them out of there. We've pulled them out of this harness, and they go into this plug here, which is identified down here. So this plug does all your your power control, so your fan relays, your ignition relays, fuel pump, etc. So also the air conditioning compressor relay. So basically all these wires here actually come from the same spot, either here or to the EFI relays. So they're all sort of grouped together in logical spots on this board. So we've just roughed it in and actually sort of pull the relays out a bit and prime apart to sort of poke the wires in there, and that sort of identified that they go into that plug. This one here is your power wire. So some of that come from the EFI relays, and they've just been routed into here. Also got the your ignition wire, and these wires here predominantly went to the front. So they're all your tacho, check engine light, the Canbus, so the OBD2 plug, the test mode wire, and also all the cruise control wires. So they're all identified down here and on the original diagrams. So I've also got a sheet here that shows this model, what colour wire, pin on the ECU, and also what pin it goes to in the interface board. But that'll help you. But yeah, we've just done it manually here to show you how to do it. So yeah, that's pretty much all the wires they've got to go in this board, apart from the throttle pedal. So we'll do that last, and next video clip I'll show you this is the body computer. So we need this for the Immobiliser. I'll show you a quick way to identify the wires that need to go into. Only about 10 wires that go into that, or if that. So I'll show you how to identify them, and then we can pretty much get rid of all this, all that'll disappear, and we'll have a nice neat loom. Alrighty, so now we've removed the accelerator pedal wiring, and we've just taped it all together there, and it goes into this 6-pin connector. So that was taken out from down here, and yeah, this video I'm just going to show you the last bit of wiring that we need to do, and that's the Immobiliser. So this sort of spooks a few people, the Immobiliser, I think, especially the Americans who think that you can't do a harness with an Immobiliser, but yet the rest of the world have been doing it since Immobiliser introduced in about 1999. So yeah, the best way to do it is have a look at the diagram. So this is the diagram for this model. It's one page, and basically we've got the body integrated module, which is that, and basically just need to connect everything up as it's shown on this one page diagram. Don't need to worry about the key warning switch, so I've crossed that out. It's got a couple of constant powers, which all I do is join them together. So the white and blue, white and black, and the blue and red. And there's a spare spot in the power connector on the interface box for those wires. There's a dash indicator light for the security. So this is good to hook up as well. So if you have a problem and it's not recognizing the key, or there's an Immobiliser issue, that's good for diagnostics. So this used to go into the cluster, but we've got the cluster delete in this, so that will be going into the interface box as well. So there's a key symbol on the interface box that does that security light. So there's 2 wires that go from the body computer to the ECU. So definitely need them. There's also a 2-wire twisted pair wire that goes to the key antenna. So that's, I've already pulled that one out. That's this one here. And it's normally located very close to the Immobiliser unit, because this is actually screwed onto the steering column. So that's the barrel there with the key, and the antenna is basically this sort of gold copper antenna. It's got I don't know, about 100 turns, I think, and it reads the chip inside the key. So you actually don't need the whole barrel, but you can't, on this model, you can't just put the key inside this plastic ring. It needs a metal housing. So you found you actually get it like a 24mm socket, put the socket in just this end bit, and then put the key in there, and that works as well. So you don't have to have this whole bulky key assembly, but I like to have the key assembly in here. So if you park the car for a certain amount of time, or you want a bit more security, all you do is take the key out, hide this somewhere and take the key out, and no one can start the car. So I think it's actually a good idea to keep it all intact. So yeah, it's about 10 or a dozen or so wires here. There's a couple that aren't shown on here, and it's actually the Canbus wires. So there's this model's got 2 Canbuses, can high and can low. Can high goes to the engine. So can high is, in this model, red and blue. So red's can high, blue's can low. So we need to connect this back up to the engine computer. And the pink and violet is this pair here, and that's the low speed cam which went to the dash cluster. So we're not going to run the dash cluster in this Loom, although we're going to put the plug on just in case, but this is going to go to the dash delete module. So yeah, what I do is identify the wires. So basically everything that's listed here. So you got there's A, B and C connectors, and so this one's A. So A is actually the dash harness, which we stripped first. So I haven't got that one plugged in, and the orange one's B and the green one's C. So B and C go to the main harness, which is all this, and we only need, yeah, probably about 8 wires out of that. So all I do is get these connectors, identify all the wires in this diagram, put them aside, and then chop the rest of them off. And that's it for the wiring. And then you can, yeah, all this will just all come out then, and you'll basically be left with harness from the engine computer into the interface box to this. And then what we'll do, because this is a fair distance away from that, we'll actually chop the wires going between the two and relocate the body module with these 2 modules that have them all together. So it's just a matter of chopping those wires and joining them up, about half a dozen wires. So now we've stripped all the non-engine related wiring out of that harness, and this is basically all we've got left. So they're the engine plugs, the gearbox plugs, O2 sensor, rear O2 sensor, the front O2 sensor is actually through the engine plug. And there's a few wires here that we didn't allow for. These are the reverse switch wires and also the neutral switch. So we'll that actually, because this one's going to be using a Subaru gears box, we'll wire the reverse switch into this green plug here. So it's got onboard fuse for the reverse light circuit. We just need to, one wire is just a little bit short, so that's probably the only wire we need to extend, is that green and blue, which is the reverse lights active power. But yeah, other than that, it's all worked out pretty good. So yeah, down here, and that's the engine computer. And then yeah, all I've got to do now is cut all these wires to length. So I'll bundle all this up so it's nice and neat. And then yeah, work out the lengths to each plug. Then I'll chop the wires, strip the wires, and then it's just a matter of crimping the pins in here. So these are Molex plugs, so they come with the interface box. So yeah, if I get a wire here, I've stripped this one, so only a few mils of wire you need to strip. And then you just get these are the crimp pins. Excuse my dirty hands. Yeah, I've been renovating, so I've got a bit of paint on them. So these are the proper Molex crimpers. So these are actually, they're quite expensive, a few $100s to buy. But they're a very wise investment, especially if you do a lot of them. So obviously I do a lot of this now, and it's very makes a very neat crimp, and it's really quick as well. So a bit hard to do with holding the phone. So yeah, you put the crimp in there and put the wire in. Actually, you do that one click, put the wire in. Yeah, I can't do it and hold the phone, but alrighty. So here we are with the finished harness. We're just bench testing this with the Subaru Select monitor, make sure there's no weird errors. So yeah, give you a bit of a look. So that's the engine computer on the bottom. Got our interface box. We've taken the lid off just to make it a bit clearer. There's normally a clear lid that goes over the top. That's the body computer. The dash delete is just on top of the body computer, so that's just connected with 4 wires. It's also removable. I've got the ignition barrel and key just beside it, and we've kept the dash, or one of the dash cluster plugs. So that's used for programming the dash delete, or if you want to take the dash delete off and run the cluster, you can do that as well. And we've made a couple of harness extensions. So this is the accelerator pedal. So this is going into a Volkswagen bus. So we've got a 5 meter harness extension there. So yeah, this will go up the front obviously, and then 5 meters into the interface box, which will be towards the rear of the car, normally under the back seat. And that plugs into this plug in the interface box. So that's all basically plug and play, as well as the alternator harness. This has been extended as well, because this has to reach back into the interface box. So this is a 4-pin plug which plugs into that one, and then basically all we've got left is these 2 plugs here. So this is what will go to the front of the car, which is all the cruise control wiring. So if you don't have cruise control, you don't need anything to be plugged into there. This one's got cruise control, and this one is other dash indicators, so like your oil pressure, temperature gauge, malfunction indicator light, charge light, whatnot. So I've got power just hooked into here, so I've got the ignition switch. I've got a constant power just to test it. And the last one is just under here, and that's basically just going to have when you wire the fuel pumps up, it'll wire directly into there. And one that's not removable is this strip here, and that'll be for your radiator fan. So you wire your radiator fans directly up to the box. As you can see, the little key symbol is flashing, so I've got 12 volts on that. So if I go and power that up with the ignition switch. Yeah, so I've got the ignition switch on. You probably saw the fuel pump come on there as well. And there's no no Immobiliser lights. The Immobiliser's happy. And you can see on the dash emulator here, there's a little red light. And if it's successful in giving it the Immobiliser codes, it flashes twice, so which is what it's doing, so that's good. I might actually show you what happens if I do actually remove the key. So I've removed the key now. If I turn the power off, so I turn the ignition off there, I'll actually turn the 12 volts off as well. And then 12 volts back on. So it'll flash again, and then when I go and hit the ignition switch, you'll see the key light is constantly on. So that's saying that it's not giving a valid code. So it proves that the key's working. And up here we've also put in a speed sender. So all the Canbus systems, the speed sensor is via the ABS module. So it's not actually on the Loom, so we have to actually add a speed sensor only if the customer wants cruise control. So if they want cruise control, they obviously need a speed sensor off the gearbox, and if they want that as well, they need the Canbus emulator, which is installed in there. So this Loom is only part Canbus, so it actually doesn't need the Canbus emulator, only if you're running cruise control, because it's the only way to get the speed signal in there. And yeah, this is just the engine plugs. I've just got a dummy plug in there just for some grounds and to power it up, and yeah, that's the finished product. So anyway, I hope that this has been a bit of help for you guys, and what you need from a later model Canbus Loom, what you need to save, and what can be achieved. Thanks for watching.